I know Webflow are developing their AI capabilities. They're in a bit of a weird space at the moment where they're marketing to new customers. You know, their AI site builder is very, let's call it basic. They're putting a lot of mixed messages out. They want the new people who don't know how to build websites, but in the background, they're building some really cool little features around components and code components and Webflow Cloud, and there's lots of stuff going on, but it all feels just a little bit all over the place. Sometimes 3 or 4 months behind the game.
Webflow is not going anywhere. Even if they don't solve this problem, Webflow is still going to be around and you're still going to be able to make money using Webflow in 10 years, even if Webflow does nothing. However, they're a big company with a lot of people and they need to adapt, and they are confused. I don't think they know who they're going after.
I think they're in a very dangerous place in that if they don't start thinking a little bit more about the individual stakeholders, Webflow becomes just run-of-the-mill part of the conversation further down the line, but the first place we go is custom build.
These days, what do you still, besides obviously client says, I want Webflow, so you're going to do it in Webflow, or the site's already in Webflow, new builds, when would you and when would you not use Webflow now at this point in time?
Good question. So the way I would normally frame it, especially now, talking about, there's some other option, is going, who are the stakeholders for this website, essentially? You've got the users. Let's say they're going to be the same regardless. Then you have maybe the person who wants to change things, like optimize things. And, maybe they're let's call them the product manager of the website. They're not maybe a product manager, they may be the CEO, they may be the marketing director, whatever it might be. But they want to go, we want to do this and we want to do this. And in 6 months' time, we want to do this. And then you've got the day-to-day. Or in some instances, it might be week to week. They're not in it every day, but they're week to week. And once you've got that mapped out, and this is typical, is wind back 6 months, maybe a year, the build mode in Webflow was the thing, Everyone was talking about build mode because at the end of the day, it started to divide a little bit, and Flow started putting a lot of focus on marketing teams. We're the platform for marketing teams. They got, Optimizely, is it not optimized? Optimized. Then they got some of that intelligent stuff, the analytics, all that kind of stuff started coming into the Webflow stack. And you could kind of say, brilliant, this is a marketing team's platform now. As a developer stroke designer, I would say more of the developer side is we're there to make a system on top of Webflow, like just a layer, a UI layer that allows the marketing team to move quickly, really quickly. They open up the thing in 5 minutes, they've got a new landing page, 10 minutes, whatever it might be. But, someone has been told, we're launching this event. Can you create a new landing page for me? And if you break it down into those little atomic actions, how can we assess those tools against each other? You're an internal team, so you guys are very probably tech natives. As you said, like, why wouldn't we do this? We can get in there. You guys are you're exploring new boundaries of technology all the time. A lot of clients who use Webflow, they're not a tech company. They might be an insurance company. They might be a marketing company. They might be an events company, like a recruitment company. Their first thing they think about in the morning is not tech and Webflow. Over the last 6 months, probably the last 12 months, Webflow started to put a lot of investment into components and component features. But what I found more recently is they're very dev-centric. So I, as a dev, can move a lot more quickly around the Webflow environment in terms of building pages once I use my component system and properties and variants and slots. And then you start to realize when you step back, you go, there's a lot of complex terms floating around here. And you know what? These 2 clients that I have, they really struggle with these terms. They don't know what a slot is. They might nod their head when I teach them, for an hour session on a Monday. But when they come to creating a new landing page, they've forgotten what a slot is. They don't know the rules of the game, what you can put a slot in, what happens when you put a slot in there, what if you put nested slots, variants, how can I change this? They ask very simple, I wouldn't call them naive, but just very pragmatic questions of, can we change this? Can we change this? And it's up to me then as a developer or their developer partner to go, we could, but as you, like we have to hack around it, or it's not really set up that way, or I wish I set it up that way in the first place, but we didn't because we had this different use case. And what I've just found is that before we've got to a place now where you really have to dig down in what the stakeholders want to do on a daily basis. You almost need to put a little GoPro on their shoulder and follow them around for a week on what they do on their computer and screen record and go, okay, this is what they do. This is what, okay, they say they're going to do it like this, but they don't. Their CEO demands this and they're under pressure and all this kind of stuff. And I'm finding Webflow at the moment is not malleable enough on the marketeer's end to give these people what they want. They have a component system, they have a build mode. The build mode is too complex, I think. It's not like Squarespace. Like we joke about in our WhatsApp groups, it's like we need Webflow to be Squarespace on the front end for marketers. They need to be able to drag and drop. They can only put it in certain areas. It's so simple. They can build a landing page and then you go, oh, there's AI coming in. What if I could type in, can you build me a landing page for events? Go. And all it did was take the components in your library of components and it put them into a landing page and it populated the content and it allowed them to go in and change it. You're like, Webflow AI, perfect match. It's brilliant. I just have to build a system. The AI makes sense of it. And the marketeers can just, oh, can you change the color of this to red or blue or, and they don't have to worry about what a variant is or the name of the variant or the name of the prop or the folder that the prop's in or the slot or all this kind of stuff. But you can move to Claude Code or any AI, like let's call it custom build, you lose all of that Webflow ecosystem, but you can build something specifically for those stakeholders. You can say, do you know what? I'm gonna put a headless CMS on the top of it, or I'm going to use Airtable because that's what you use in the rest of your business, or whatever it might be. And there's no barriers. There's no like, can it be done, or is this the best way to do it? It's like we're just going to do it. Like I was trying it with a recruitment company the other day, and they use a CRM, it's called Bullhorn, and we had to integrate with it. I was trying to use Make. Make didn't have an integration. Then what's the other one? N8, is it N8? Yeah. Trying to use, they didn't have it. Zapier got discontinued years ago because it didn't get supported by the Bullhorn team. So within 10 minutes, we had an integration, a middleware integration hosted on Cloudflare workers with a cron job working between the Webflow CMS and Bullhorn. And you start to go, this is brilliant. We're building solutions really quickly for problems that these businesses, no one else in the world will need this. Well, lots of people will, but they don't have to need it. Someone doesn't have to build an app for this or a plugin I just did it, boom. And before you know it, you start to go, why isn't not every project like this? So I think we're in a place now, and it's a weird place because I know Webflow are developing their AI capabilities or integrations, let's call it. They're in a bit of a weird space at the moment where they're marketing to new customers. Their AI site builder is very, let's call it basic. They're putting a lot of mixed messages out. Let's say if I was going to be harsh about it, is they want the new people who don't know how to build websites, but in the background they're building some really cool little features around components and code components and Webflow Cloud, and they're supporting Next.js and Astro, and there's lots of stuff going on, but it all feels just a little bit all over the place. Sometimes 3 or 4 months behind the game, which is expected because Claude Code come out next week and they'll have a new model and a new platform feature and so it's moving so quickly. You can't expect someone like Webflow or Framer or Adobe or to keep up this stuff. But I think they're in a very dangerous place in that if they don't start thinking a little bit more about the individual stakeholders, Webflow could become, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but for people like me, a lot of my peers, the answer when a client comes, we want to do this, we want to build a website, or it's got a website with a bit of an app, or it's an app, or it's just a brochure site, or whatever, Webflow becomes just run of the mill part of the conversation further down the line. But the first place we go is custom build, and the cost of it, the time, the options, it's a pure Lego block play, whereas Webflow is becoming a little bit more, feels like a closed Lego, not, well, it is Lego, but maybe more like Duplo, the younger people's Lego, where there's less blocks and they're easier to put together. But once you've built the train, you can't build a car out of that set. It's that, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's such like things have been kicked up in the air so much that I'm not sure where it's going, and I'm not sure where Webflow's edge is. Like the community around Webflow, in my opinion, used to be thriving. It used to be on fire. I thought it was just such a warm. It was just there was stuff going on all of the time. It was very, very organic as well. More recently, it just felt very quiet, very subdued, very people have got their heads elsewhere. Like it's just an interesting time. Yes, I don't know. I'm hoping, like, I have a lot of love for Webflow and what it's done for me personally, what the system is. I just hope they kind of, I don't know, embrace the new age. It is a new age. I think embrace the new age a little bit more aggressively, I suppose, because it will give us more to hang our hats on. It's like we are still Webflow devs. We still get leads like build me a Webflow site. The more instances we are like, maybe it's not the right thing for you. More of those conversations are happening more and more around the world on Zoom calls with clients. They've got to nip that in the bud somehow. Uh, Otherwise, those little 2-page, 3-page, 10-page websites that might balloon into really big customers are not going to exist in a while. To want of a better, who's on radio, the facility rate of Webflow is declining, I think.
That is such a good way to put it. So I think actually very similar to fertility rate, something that a lot of people, you'll see stuff on X, on even like the Webflow expert Slack, where people are like, whoa, whoa, is Webflow dying? Is Webflow dying? No. I think you could say that Webflow is dying in the same way that you could say Italy or South Korea is dying. In the same way, they're thriving, they exist, a lot of things are going well, but at the same time you can see that these I don't obviously know their new site numbers, but I imagine they would be dropping, or at least far less than they otherwise would have been. And I think everything you said, a lot of these videos, a lot of these conversations that I have, I really have them hoping the Webflow team is watching, because like you said, I love the community. Everything that the community has done for me, everything that I've done for the community. I have met some amazing people, friends that I have. I very rarely meet someone in the Webflow community who I don't like. And I love that. There's events popping up. I love going to them. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. But I also kind of feel that more and more, a lot of the people who I talk to, especially the early Webflow community advocates, are talking less and less and less about Webflow. And I try to repeat this as much as I can for anyone, similar to what I just said about South Korea and Italy, what you said about fertility rates. Like, no, Italy and South Korea are not going anywhere. Webflow is not going anywhere. Even if they don't solve this problem, Webflow is still going to be around, and you're still going to be able to make money using Webflow in 10 years, even if Webflow does nothing. However, they're a big company with a lot of people, and they need to adapt. And I think what you were saying is very true. They are confused. I don't think they know who they're going after at this point in time, because absolutely, look, when you have this person, maybe 5-6 years ago, Webflow was like, hey, you want to learn how to build a website and get something up for your company? Use Webflow. Even then, it was still more like Wix and Squarespace. That was the target market. Those people at this point in time, they're not going to learn what a div block is. They're going to go to Lovable or Bolt or something like that and just say, I want a website for this. Boom, call it a day. I made in like 40 minutes a new personal website for myself today using Claude Code. I use Claude Code. This beginner group of people, they're not going to use Webflow. They're not going to use Claude Code. They're going to use maybe Wix, maybe Squarespace, maybe Lovable, that sort of thing. And then you have your let's say power users, your power builders, I don't know what to call them. Basically people like you and I, just we do this for a living, we do this professionally, and we're going to use whatever gets the job done quickly and easily. And this is the group of people who I see more and more leaving Webflow. Is that a problem for Webflow as a company? Perhaps. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I would think it is, but like that's the thing. They don't have a clearly defined target market for this new time. And if anyone at Webflow is watching this, I think what you described in terms of the marketing team, Webflow has been heading in an enterprise direction for a little while now. Everyone's well aware of that. I think that might be a really good spot for them to, just thinking of, if I worked at Webflow, for Webflow to double down, where what would happen is you would build components, you as the builder, the developer, and then after that, all of these components would be like in their own library. And then you can prompt Claude to make me a landing page for this. And it would use those predefined components in the way that the developer said to do whatever it is that the client wants. I saw that and I was thinking, wow, this for marketing teams, this sort of thing. I know he's just tinkering around with it. I don't like, he's making it for them internally. But I'm looking and thinking that, and also hearing what you just said, that I think is what Webflow that's where their bread and butter might be, is like, we're going to make it complicated and powerful for you as the developer to build these systems for your clients. And then your clients are going to use it in, let's say, a very like AI native way that uses your predefined stuff, basically. I think that could be a really good direction for them to head in, because right now I feel like they're kind of just spraying in all directions and waiting to see what sticks.
Yeah, and I think I haven't worked in a company so big as Webflow, and they're obviously they got their finger on the pulse. You hope they got their finger on the pulse. Sometimes I felt that they are American, they're West Coast centric. They're in a relative. I know what it's like to be in a bubble in London, where you don't really know what else is going out in the world, and maybe there's a little bit of a bubble of the way they're building it or the way that people use it, and enterprise is dominating. But I think if you look at someone like Reloom, I wouldn't say they're canary in the gold mine, but maybe you could say they're a canary in the gold mine. Is they're moving to V2, and they're being very purposeful, and they're being very transparent about they're building something that is going to help. It was almost like, we don't care what platform or what fancy animations, we want a website or a web presence that delivers for your business. That's kind of what Dan is coming out with on LinkedIn. And it's, if you look at Reloom and we go, imagine Reloom but was in Webflow, and you had an AI assistant that could literally build a page just using your favorites from Reloom,
Yeah.
And it had your variables attached to it, so it's got your design system. It had your assets ready to go. It put in the assets. It had your tone of voice. It had your brand Bible, as context. Before you know, you go, Webflow has a moat. People are still going there because it has the servers, all the nitty gritty stuff that really we don't want to have to deal with. As much as Vercel is easy to use and Netlify is, it's still messy, nitty gritty stuff that you don't really want to have to deal with. The GitHubs of this world, everyone uses them in the developer world for version control, but there's ways Webflow could abstract that a little bit. That's where they're good at. They're abstracting the HTML, JavaScript, and CSS into a nice, easy to use front. And I still think there's an opportunity there for them to be the front end builder of choice, or the front end. Maybe it's not even the front end builder, but the word building, build mode and designer, and it all gets conflated into, I'm building, oh, you're building, but you can't do this. And I'm a designer, but I'm not a designer, I'm a developer. So there's lots of semantic stuff going on. But at the end of the day, I still think there's a massive opportunity for that screen every day of the week to be that I work in, that my marketing team works in, or my marketing client works in, to be owned by Webflow tools, Webflow interfaces. They just need to be a bit, maybe a little bit less scattergun about it. It feels like they've got, floor one in San Fran HQ is let's get new users on board. And then floor two is we're doing really cool stuff for the developers. And then floor three is the university education team, but they've lost half their staff a couple of years ago, and it's not really like, because it's moving so quick. They create stuff on Wednesday, and by Saturday it's out of date, kind of, and it just feels like they're a little bit disjointed, and maybe they do step back and go, what does that look like when I'm opening up a blog post, YouTube stuff on where I'm coming from? I'm seeing AI site builder, yeah, but it doesn't even have components in it. Like, it doesn't even give me any components out of the box. Like the app gen, the variables aren't synced. So if I change my primary color from red to yellow in my designer, that doesn't sync to my app gen code base. There's stuff that I think about from a developer, and we talk about that. We know that language, but from a marketer's point of view, that's going to be the same problem. It's like, I just changed it to yellow, but why isn't it changing here? The promise was it's all unified design system. So it's all those little things there that just feel like, yeah, they're all shooting in different directions a bit, and the world is becoming a little bit more singular focused. Even when you look at what I've done in the last couple of months, if I want a recipe app for my household, I take into account all the things that my household does. I'm not interviewing you. I'm not interviewing Luke or Corey on how they do their grocery shopping or how they've got 3 kids. We've only got 2, their ages. I'm going, what are my needs? And I'm building an app in Claude Code and pushing it to a Netlify account. Boom. It's on my wife's phone. She can put in recipes if she like. I can put in recipes. We've got like a Tinder recipe app. It's like, oh, I really like that. And before you know it, you've got a shopping list out of it. No one else is using it. I'm not making any money out of it. It just works. And I feel like I can forget about that now. And I think Webflow needs to almost move into that world where just focus on being the best front end development platform with a marketing portal, almost like the legacy editor did. It's like the legacy editor, rest in peace, legacy editor soon. But the fact that it was a different experience almost suggested that they were thinking about a different user. And that, I think, is a real net positive. We don't have to have the same interface for every single user. And as soon as that kind of got retired, I suppose, or said, look, you're going out to pasture next year, the designer has become full of these, like, it's got to cope with developers' experience and it's got to cope with the marketers' experience. And they just come up with this, I wouldn't say Frankenstein because that's a horrible way to say it, but they've come up with something that's trying to be everything to everyone. And now AI's come along and it's like, how do we shoehorn this in to these experiences instead of being, all right, let's create a brand new developer platform. And maybe they are. I'm hoping they are. Hoping they're having a whole IDE platform powered by AI that's just for developers to go in. And then they might have a GSAP kind of platform that is all for the animators. So, the guys at Osmo who, obviously, and those kind of guys who maybe are less functionally led and more visually led in terms of what their clients want, they're in that platform, and then the marketers are in another platform, and just being very purposeful about the platform, And I think it's just they need to be doing this. They can move. I know they've got infrastructure, but they just don't want to be in we don't look back in 2 years' time and go like we do with the banks these days. Like, banks in Ireland cannot move quick enough because they have legacy systems.
Yeah.
It's the same in the UK. You have Monzos and you have Starlings, and they've just popped up and their market cap has gone through the roof because they've had a clean slate to work with in terms of technology. And HSBC and Barclays go, yeah, but we can't move quick enough because our platform is built on XYZ technology and it would take us 5 years to rip that up. And so you almost want them to feel that startup energy in what we're in the new world and start building with individual stakeholders in mind rather than thinking of this it's a Webflow platform that is just everything to everyone.